So go.
Welcome everybody, second meeting of the month, Board of Trustees. Presently, we have two trustees, fiscal officer, a road administrator. You're on the wrong, no.
It doesn't recognize you on the side of the room.
We changed it last, yeah, you're now road administrator. What do you think of that? New title.
All right.
No increase in.
Yeah, same pay.
No increase.
Bigger list to go with it.
Yeah, that would be a list. And zoning inspector who apparently got his calendar wrong.
There was a conflict the first of the month, so I'm here at the third of the month,
I see. Well,
third week.
thank you for making an appearance. Guest from the floor, I know Laura. Are we here for the same thing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm David Diamond. I'm with Community Solutions, and we're both here about the Agraria Trail.
Okay.
Unless you have something else too.
Can you give us about 2 minutes to just run through a couple of things, and then it'll be all yours?
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve this evening. One for November 5th. Is there a motion for that approval?
I would make that motion.
That was our normal meeting. I guess I'll second it. Any further discussion regarding those minutes? Hearing none, may we vote please?
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes. And then we have two special meeting minutes to approve. One of the 14th. Is there a motion to approve that set?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Crockett moves, I'll second it. Any further discussion regarding the adoption of that set of minutes? Here, may we vote please?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
And finally, we have a set of special minutes for the special meeting on November 16th. That was the firehouse discussion last Friday. Is there a motion to approve those?
Yes.
Mr. Crockett moves, I'll second. Any further discussion regarding those minutes? Hearing none, may we vote please?
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes. And now entertain a motion to approve payment of accounts of $26,447.72, broken down general fund 629.15, fire fund 15,621.01, cemetery 185.06, EMS building 5334.18, road bridge 3129.26, and capital project $1,549.06. I just had to change that one. Is there a motion to approve?
I would make that motion.
Mr. Crockett moves, I'll second. Any further discussion regarding payment of these accounts? None, may we vote please?
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
In remembrance of Lawrence Breckland, I'm going to dispense with going through the correspondence, tighten up these meetings for this evening, and move right into discussion from the floor.
That would be you.
That would be David and
All
Laura.
right.
Could do something about that.
Get my little map here. Might help clear some things up.
I'm gonna let you figure out how you're gonna show the viewing
Your back
audience
is, your camera, yeah, you might want
at
to.
the same time.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that is pretty tricky. I really don't know. Maybe we'll turn it around after we finish talking about it for a minute. So what we have here is a map of the proposed Agraria Trail, which we're hoping to get a resolution of support from the Board of Trustees. Oh wow!
Hold on.
So
Wait,
we're applying for
Hold it still.
a
Okay,
grant
go ahead.
from
Yeah,
the
okay.
Clean Ohio Trail
Wait,
Fund
let's see.
for this trail.
Wait.
Is,
Oh, well, you want to hold it
supporting
like that?
Yellow Springs, and particularly the high school and middle school, but also the village at
That's good.
large, with Agraria, the multi-use trail. Agraria is our center for regenerative agriculture and regenerative practice in general that's been established for about coming up on a year now. And we've had a really good partnership with the Yellow Springs School so far. We've had a number of school groups come out, we've had a number of community events, and all of it would be vastly improved if we could have people bike and walk out instead of always having to drive. But biking and walking on Dayton Yellow Springs Road is not advisable ever. So that's the purpose of this this application, and so yeah, we're wanting to present it to the various governing bodies and take any questions. And we'd love to have the support of Miami Township.
Okay, thank you. Laura, anything to add just before?
Yeah, I don't know, have you ever been asked to do one of those resolutions of support for Clean Ohio project?
Sure,
Yeah.
lots of times, at least for the Council Land Trust.
Yes.
Not sure there's any young ones right offhand for Clean Ohio, but yeah, for Council Land Trust, yeah.
Yeah, so great, and I'm an attorney and I do some legal work for Agraria, but I'm here on my own dime really tonight to support it. I've done a lot of trail projects, so this would be the Clean Ohio Trail Fund would be the grant source they'd go after, and the landowners are putting up match in terms of land value that is being donated through some of the parcels that are going to be part of this corridor. The corridor is also going to be outside of the easement area so that it doesn't, the construction won't affect the ag easement that's going on the property. Sometimes, as you know, it makes sense for local governments to think about, everybody knows budgets are stretched and so forth, but if there may be some ways local government can assist with issues with trails as they do with the big trail out here. I don't know if the budget's been put together yet, but the timeline of these grants has been the same for a while, and it's February 1st is the grant deadline. So at your next meeting, I think David probably wants to be on the agenda to present a written resolution asking for your support for the grant. Now I don't believe that any match is required at this moment because of the land value that's being donated. Some local governments help provide some match or support in terms of in-kind activities, so I don't know if that will be an ask or not from you or the village or the park. You met with the park district, right?
Yeah, we did meet with Greene County Parks and Trails, and they were very encouraging and definitely offered support, and they actually offered some matching money towards the grant.
Will they be maintaining it?
Well, that's something that no, they will not be. That's one thing that has to be figured out. We obviously are gonna, at Community Solutions, we're gonna assume at least part of the burden and try to, be responsible for it. But we're trying to, we're figuring out exactly how to put a plan together to make sure that the maintenance is taken care of. Because it's going to be part paved and part crushed limestone, and it's going to definitely going to require some.
Has the application been put together yet?
It's in process. I mean, it's due February 1st, so it's a lot of it has been. We did apply last year, and we learned a lot through that process, and a lot of it will be, updated versions of those materials.
Would you expect the application to be mostly complete before our next meeting, if you were coming back to our next meeting for that resolution? I mean, so we could review it?
Yeah. We'd be happy to let you see, a nearly complete application for sure.
Including the draft the draft resolution that
Yes.
you're proposing?
Yes, I was gonna see if I could even email that to you ahead of time.
Sure, yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
And would you like to see whatever grant materials we have through the email as well?
Please.
Okay, we'll certainly do that.
Yeah, the more we can understand it, certainly the better.
Sure.
You know, you can grasp it. Mark, Don, any questions, response?
Sounds like a good project to me.
The schools are enthusiastic, right, because some of their students will be coming out to Agraria.
Yeah,
And
we
you
have,
have, one private owner between us and the schools, and then you cross a right-of-way.
well, we figured out that we are actually gonna need, two landowners, because it's gotta, as it goes across that right of way, it's gotta go, the best way to do it would be to go across Mr. Shorter's property. So he's somebody who I understand had been enthusiastic before, and we're getting ready to present to him, you know, what his part would be, and work out whether that would be a small purchase or an easement that he would grant us, or what. But that is just gonna be the very corner of his property, like barely any of it at all. And the most substantial landowner is the one that you already mentioned, or the one that we're talking about.
Yep.
Is the drawing conceptual? It looks like it runs through the cemetery.
Well, yes, now that that's an active project that we're trying to figure out, because the location of that cemetery is only really becoming clear right now. And whether it's actually, whether there is anyone there is definitely, it's being studied right now by a graduate student from Wright State. But I mean, the only two sets of remains that were there originally have been transported to a different cemetery, Woodlawn. And so there's a graduate student at Wright State who's digging into whether there's any other people that we might
Digging in
well, we're not doing that.
figuratively.
We're trying to figure out whether it's going to be necessary for us to go around the cemetery, or whether we could just go through it and put some signage about its previous use.
Did we ever find it?
Well, we know where it is, but, well, we know.
It was
basically
surveyed in.
It was surveyed in, yeah. But is there an ownership yet? Because there wasn't an owner.
That's something that this graduate student that's his first item on his agenda to look into, is what is the ownership of it, because it's very unclear.
Yeah.
Is it a private cemetery on private land?
Probably.
Yeah.
As you know,
A few owners back.
so it's only a
Just a
public,
few.
it's only a public cemetery if non-family members ended up being buried there. You know, and that flips it into the question of whether the township has any responsibility if it's a public cemetery.
But if it was a
it's
private
purely a
cemetery,
private cemetery.
the ownership is still unclear. Because it was never transferred.
What do you mean? It's just part of that farm or something, is it part of a bigger property?
Has your researcher talked
No.
to the surveyor who surveyed it off? He
Uh,
did that based
surveyed
on
off.
the deed, probably.
In 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he's gonna to check that.
I mean,
If he's
I
not,
looked
I'll tell
into
him to
it
do
after the
that.
survey, I don't know.
He does have a copy of
Did
the
they
survey.
identify an ownership after the survey? I haven't looked at it prior to the survey being done, or after the survey being done. Prior to it, there's no name on it. You can't
Right.
click on it and have it be a parcel. It's not existing.
Yeah, it's just
No, it
part
was
of the
Except
bigger.
that it's on the county GIS.
But the point I'm making is that the surveyor, when he did his research of the deeds established that there was a cemetery there.
Yeah, he would
So
have had
that
to.
he already has the information that you're telling your graduate student to find, probably.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he does. We did give him a copy of that survey, and so you know, if he's not talking to that surveyor, then we'll certainly put him down that path.
The other one that I look at, isn't there a drainage swale along that side of the high school?
Yes.
And it looks like the path is running down the swale.
Okay. Yeah. So.
It's
Down or
maybe-
next
Here's
to?
the swale, right?
I don't know, yeah,
It's
so
concrete,
it's
that's
just
okay.
inside the swale?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the cemetery bike path.
I don't know if we'll name it that, but, you know, we'll see what we'll try to figure out what would be how it would be best to deal with that question right now.
Maybe
You know,
the
it's
family
something-
name that's on the cemetery.
Yeah, no, we're definitely gonna at least put some signage there to give people a sense of what they're riding through, or what they're riding around. It's just a question of, you know,
Well, I'm very interested in the project. And you have, we have 2 meetings before the February 2nd deadline.
yeah, I think we're gonna try to get our materials.
Yeah, a lot more than
Is that
that.
4?
December and
Oh,
January.
excuse me, 2 months before.
Yeah, 2 months, yeah.
You're right.
But I
Yeah.
mean, if we only wanna do 2 weeks, then.
Yeah, so I really think that we will have, you know, we'll have close to complete application for you to look at. Whether we'll be completely finished up with all the landowners at that point, I'm not sure. But, you know, that's all part of the process that we're in right
Okay, well, I'm certainly interested in seeing what the whole package looks like, so.
now. All right.
The
Could
one,
you-
sorry, the one thing that is tricky about doing these projects for public access, transportation, recreation, as you know, is that governments have a higher level of immunities, especially with recreational activities. And they also have better access to insurance. So one of the just a practical problem with these trails is if a nonprofit builds the trail, the nonprofit, even though it's public access, ends up insuring it on their general commercial liability policy, which is, you know, I think it's kind of a fairness issue is, you know, if the public supports the project, why should necessarily a nonprofit have to put it on their general commercial liability? And they don't get recreational immunity like governments do, you know? And so that's like a practical problem. And I've solved that problem with a government lease of like the entity might own it or the underlying landowners may give a lease, but the government like leases it for purposes of public access. And then they just put it on their insurance in case anybody gets hurt, and then for recreational immunity purposes and government immunity purposes. So it's a cheaper way to ensure what goes on that right-of-way.
The Glen has recreational immunity. You have access to their property
I don't
for
think
free.
they have it I don't think they have it at the same level governments do. In
My understanding is
my
that
opinion,
because you
my
don't
legal
pay to
opinion.
use the Glen, if you don't pay to use the Glen, you have no
Liability.
recourse for suing.
Yeah, but you still have to, any known dangers, you're supposed to,
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know,
what
take
you're-
care of those.
You're getting at is who
And then
owns,
governmental immunity.
What I
they
hear
don't
you-
have it at all.
moving towards is, who really manages this trail?
Because see, if you're managing it, and the township has the liability, that doesn't make sense.
No, it could, because the township could hire the mowing. I mean, you can hire vendors, you know, like the school could agree to mow their section and Agraria agrees to mow their section. I mean, governments hire people to do stuff for them all the time. And you just have a formal relationship, say they're agreeing, you can have an agreement, they're gonna agree to mow this.
That-
And then they're acting under the government.
So this gets me back to, why is some of it paved and some of it not? Or, I mean, why some limestone and some asphalt?
Right, one of the landowners is only really willing to donate the land or even sell it if we promise not to pave that section.
You know, and my hope is that would be a 50-year promise or something. Because eventually, you know, eventually, the fact of the matter is, for ADA purposes, you really ultimately wanna pave it, I think.
Well, it's
But
just,
that's just me, I'm just saying.
it's just interesting to me when I look at public bicycle paths, or more public than this one might be, you know, all the things that are going on, the barrier fences, you know, to keep people from wandering off onto private property, and the constant, you know, relatively constant maintenance, not perfect, but they're maintained all the time, and realizing that maybe that's part of what has to happen if you're going to assume the liability for it.
So the studies are, you can go to americangreenways.org and read every study ever done on the trail. And there's a lot of myths about trails, you know, that are debunked by almost any serious study. And one of them, just like with your roadways, I mean, how often do people go off the roadway to just be a mere trespasser? You know, almost never. If they go off the roadway without being invited, they may have an intention to do some crime, but none of us can control crime, you know. But people don't just wander off just to be wandering off, generally. And that's something that comes up almost every time a trail's built.
I'm just responding to what I've seen.
And sometimes the trail builder or the jurisdiction, they do put up a fence. What generally happens, because a certain landowner has a concern. Okay, almost what always happens is they put up the fence and eventually the landowner asks for it to come down. Because they don't need it, don't want it it impeding their vision, or they want the access. That's really almost always what happens. And, you know, I hear those concerns a lot, and I always find it odd that they don't complain about the township road in front of their house.
You should have a
You
fence
know,
along. No, I hear what
you
you're
know,
saying.
like, and there's a car that if they really want to do you harm, they can make a fast getaway, load up your stuff, and get away. You know, and I don't know. But it almost always comes up on these trail projects. But I don't think any of those concerns are raised here. And so this is more like a small local road.
Mhm.
Essentially is what it is for non-motorized traffic. Although that you can do agreements, there's oftentimes the agricultural neighbors want to cross it or run their equipment on, you can do that. Of course, authorized emergency vehicles, it's built to be built to an ODOT standard. When you use this Clean Ohio Trail money, has to be built to ODOT standards, so you can run an ambulance on it and a fire truck. And I mean, even though it's crushed limestone, the base.
But it'll be wide enough.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How
This
long is-
particular location, not likely.
Oh, no,
Anybody
it's
can
not
fall off
likely,
their
but
bike
occasionally it
anywhere.
happens. It does. I mean, so when I was in Wilmington, we had a small trail like this, the Luther Warren Peace Path that went from Nelson Avenue to Sugar Tree behind the hospital. And the mayor's receptionist with whom I worked went off, her dog needed to go to the bathroom, went off trail a little bit. Well, she slid on the gravel and she twisted her ankle pretty badly. She thought she broke. She called 911. They ran an ambulance down there and got her. But anyway, it does happen occasionally.
Sure.
On the maintenance, we have to pay somebody to maintain our programs, is that what you're saying?
No, so that part needs to be figured out. So in general, the maintenance, if you have areas to mow, which I don't know if this one will be designed with that or not. Some of them don't have, like this Luther Warren I was just talking about.
No
It's
berms
very little
on
mow.
that one, just
Yeah,
the.
yeah, no, right. It may
How do you
be.
keep the stuff from encroaching on the road? I mean,
Yeah.
that'd be some kind
Oh,
of maintenance.
well, it
Yeah.
depends on, I don't know the topography. Sometimes it's far enough for the ditch or whatever, but, so that needs to be looked at. You're gonna have some probably limb removal and maybe perhaps some berm mowing. Once every 7 years, it should be sealed if it's asphalt. The crushed limestone will need some maintenance. So a budget needs to be developed.
With the county parks.
Well, I think that this is certainly something that they could be asked to do. I know.
This, they need to.
Yeah, so the last trail I helped with was the Clinton County Park District Phase 1, Friendship Trail from Sabina to Bourne Road. That's a 4-mile section, crushed limestone surface. We estimated a 20-year maintenance, 20-year budget of $30,000 to throw off enough income. There was not a lot of mowing on it and some crushed limestone replacement. And so the Trails Group raised that money and gave it to the Park District for the long-term maintenance. The Park District was the owner of that project. So there may be, you know, and that may be part of the budget here is what is the long-term maintenance budget.
Well, and that budget for crushed limestone really varies depending on what the grades are along the path. If it has no significant sloping areas, then it doesn't tend to wash out. But if it does, it's very hard to stop that process.
Yeah, I don't know what the topography of this one is.
Yeah, I mean, we have a topographical map. I don't have that with me this evening, but there are some areas where there's some elevation change, for sure.
Sounds like a lot of little details.
Yeah, we may be beyond your discussion. I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah,
my
well,
nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Well-
well, any other questions from the board? Or the,
I just wanted to know the overall length of the trail.
4,000 feet.
Not very long.
No.
That's from
8/10
Eastingham
of a
to.
mile, 4/5 of a mile.
Yeah.
So we'll hear from you again.
Yes, I'll get you materials by email, and then hopefully we'll come back. And we'll look to be on the agenda for the third.
and when would your hopeful anticipated construction be completed?
If you get the grant.
Right.
They will award them in like
Fall, yeah.
the summer. Probably construction by the end of 2020, I would think. You should be able to do it.
Yeah.
It's not a mile, you know, it's not a big long
Yeah.
period.
It just depends how much grading and culverts and.
Well, there's a couple of water crossings also that
Yeah.
we had to budget for some bridges, so. That's gonna take a little time.
and
All right.
Well, thank you very much for coming and giving us apprised of.
All right.
That's amazing. Thing is not allowed. Okay, we'll move on to fire department report. Our chief's not here. He did leave a written report and somewhere. A
Resolution.
that he
I've got
has.
it right here.
Okay,
I mean, you didn't give me one, I just snatched it up, here you go.
I have it.
Oh, okay. Copy too. All right,
I
good.
have it too.
All right, we're good.
He writes activity since the last meeting with 21 EMS incidents, 9 fire incidents, and 2 fire safety inspections. Pretty quiet for a period of time, it appears. We do have a resolution for appointment of two applicants, Kyle Hammond and Ryan Schroeder, both firefighters, and Kyle's EMT certification, I guess, is pending. They're not township residents, but they are both strong candidates. He also writes that, let's not forget that our annual non-denominational holiday party and award ceremony is Sunday, December 16th at Mills Park Hotel. He did say that the hotel is very animate that they have a drop-dead cutoff date for RSVPing for November 30th. So who's ever going, had better let Colin know before the 30th, or you're out in the cold. An insurance representative from Burnham Flowers, and he's told me about this, and there really isn't anything to it. Contacted him and said that they didn't think our assets were covered well enough, and that they're going to propose some new insurance coverage for us, I assume before the next time we'll renew, which is first of the year, first of February, I'm not sure which, so. That's that memo. Let's move to the resolution that came with that. That's 2018-50, appointment of volunteer personnel. Whereas continuing need exists to maintain proper staffing. Tell me about it. Whereas Kyle Hammond and Ryan Schroeder have completed all necessary application materials, background checks, and interviews to be appointed as volunteers for the Fire Rescue Department. And whereas Chief Altman has recommended appointment of these candidates, now therefore be it resolved that all the above candidates shall be appointed to volunteer positions within the Fire Rescue Department effective November 19th, 2018.
I so move.
We have a motion.
I second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion regarding resolution 2018-50?
The only comment I would make is that, I think it was on the front page of the Dayton paper today, that one of our local jurisdictions are, it was about the lack of availability of part-time folks, and that they're having to hire full-time, and that their expenses are going way up, so it's not just here, it's
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah.
But these are volunteers.
Yeah, so volunteers, yay.
Okay, no further discussion, may we vote please?
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mucher?
Yes. Okay, welcome. Kyle and Ryan. Any further fire department report or information this evening from anyone? I did talk to the chief briefly, and he didn't have anything further than that. Those two items, I guess, the Christmas party or non-denominational holiday party, RSVPs and appointments. So we'll go to new firehouse report. I think the one big piece of information there was the meeting that we had on Friday, where we found it necessary to revise the budget for the base bid amount by about $558,000 from what it was coming in at. And so we made the executive decision to change the exterior cladding of the building from the cement board material, the plank cement board material, to a more traditional face brick in part of it. And now I can't remember the name of it. Anybody remember the stone?
I don't
To
remember
replace that bottom part.
There's a trade name for a certain kind of stone
Yeah.
facade.
No, all I remember is that it was polished.
Polished?
So the look will remain the same, but the material will be different. And it will save us, in addition to, we're not going to put the light monitors, the one over the apparatus bay and the one over the meeting area, we're not going to include them in the base bid request, to save approximately $55,000 for that. But they are going to leave the engineering drawings with enough structural specifications that if the bid comes in and it's low enough that we feel comfortable that we could use either money that wasn't necessary for the bid or part of the 5% contingency, the $268,000 that we have, to go ahead and include the monitors as a change order in the project. So that's potential. So the combination of that and the exterior cladding worked out to be, anybody remember?
600.
60,
Plus,
yeah, 600.
1,000 less.
600 and a little bit, $1,000. So they are,
Hope.
yeah. So MSA is preparing a new set of drawings, a new set of specifications. It's probably going to have to go to Greene County for a secondary review because of the exterior change. Hopefully that won't delay things too long. In theory, we're hoping that the third bid will be advertised for the first time on January 16th, a Tuesday, and then 3 times 16th, twice after that to make a total of 3 times, and then we would open those bids first meeting, no, maybe not the first meeting, but the first part of February. And so, that's what we're looking forward to.
Related to this, though a procedural anomaly, I missed the motion for payment of bills, and I know that the bills included paying a bill from MSA, and I'd like to be clarify, my knowledge to be clarified on what's our ongoing obligation to our architect. This was $1,500 check. And you made some comment that they're already locked in our basic fee, they've already been paid
Right.
for, and now the whole process is dragging out. So what do we still owe them? Or what could they still bill us for?
What they're billing us for are, in a broad sense, non-intellectual property work. New copies of drawings, paper back and forth, although I don't think we've seen a whole lot. Although this is money that was for this, as I recall, for the second bid drawings. So this is what's already been spent. This is not the third go around, but it's in the contract that incidentals and consultation time and travel,
Well, I noticed they didn't bill us for travel, they billed us for, although on the chart it looked like they could have, they billed us for drawings.
Yeah, I don't think, well, they did travel up here for the bid opening, but that might have been included in the first part.
Anyway, I wasn't disturbed by the bill, I just thought, ooh, we should clarify what's going on, what's coming in the future.
Yeah, we have almost the exact same bill amount for the first bid, in between the first and the second, which I guess was for the bid, bid preparation, bid package preparation.
That is about $1,500 between.
Yeah.
So we're probably not gonna get hit with any big surprise beyond this.
No. Now, of course, once we get a good bid and, we accept it, then they're back on the clock, and we'll probably end up,
I'm broke.
I can't remember what we paid them to date and what the estimated amount was, but
Yeah,
but they'll have ongoing, they'll have
Definitely
inspections, they'll have to be here throughout the whole, obviously, they'll have to be here through the whole construction and coordination and.
And that's
all those
somehow in the longer term projection.
And that's in the budget, that's already budgeted.
So not for tonight's meeting, because I was not involved in the very beginning, and I'd like to some point, let's do a recap. So what's facing us in the next 6 months, or
Okay.
no hurry, no urgency, just.
Right, but I'd be happy to, I need to bill USDA, basically. We haven't incurred a lot of expenses, and since I last submitted a request for reimbursement. But I can show you all that we've spent so far, basically, and stuff like that.
And it's not just me, I think we ought to have
Yeah, well,
just kind of a.
but you can, but
coming
we
next?
were already spending money before you showed up, so. That's all.
All right, anything else for the new firehouse? No. Okay, so cemetery and look over here. Road administrator.
Aloha. I'd like to thank you all. for
Luau.
letting me take the time off. Yeah, we did luau. Well, let's see. Since I was last here, we had one burial for the Nashes in Clifton. We're not very active. I don't have much for cemetery. Branches to clean up.
Lots of branches.
Branches.
Everywhere. And we have Cedarville Lawn Service proposal.
Yes, this proposal.
Which is the same as the last 3 or 4 years, with the addition of $1,000 per year.
Is that in that 3 years?
3 year, yeah. He tends to bump it
Yeah,
every 3 years by,
when it's time to
yeah.
resubmit. I think prices go up, I kinda understand.
Um, So we started in 2013. Was it 12.5?
See that one, I was thinking 14.
No, not 14, not 12.5.
So last renewal was in 15, right? That was the 3 years of last.
Yeah. So that had been 2,500 or something. It must have been a pretty big jump. Of course, the leaf thing added 750, we added that.
Yeah, he used to bill us separate for that.
Separate
And
for
then
that.
he added that in on his last bid for the 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's why it was a bigger jump.
Mhm. That was like $750 or something.
Yeah. I can't say I'm terribly thrilled, but I'm
What-
not sure.
When was the last time this was advertised?
Probably
Seeking
originally.
other,
And
I don't think we,
did we have anybody?
I'm not sure. Yes, we did. Alexander, when he was in the business,
Oh, yeah.
Mark, but he's
Mhm.
10,000 more than
Yeah, it was a
everybody
lot.
else.
so how long ago was that?
2013,
Mhm.
early 2013.
Seems like, I mean, not gonna have any more mowing for 5 months.
Right, maybe, yeah. Sometime
That might
April.
be a time to put the word out, ask if there are others. I mean, I have no reason to object to this.
Let's see, Bath Township does theirs internally, right?
They've got a full-time crew.
And Xenia, you know how?
They've only got a couple of them, like Franz took care of the Catholic one,
Mhm.
but I don't think how that's connected to the city township. But they have Stevenson and Friends,
Mhm.
but they just do them when they need to mow. And any burials they have to do, they do them, which is, they have burials like we do,
You know who does Cedar?
wrong. Or actually,
Mhm.
road department.
Mhm.
They have two,
Yeah.
North and Massey.
Mhm.
I think they hire someone to help them mow. They do the burials.
Mhm.
I don't know how many they do.
Is the increase from 15 to 16?
Yes.
So that's about a 6% increase, 2% a year if it's for a 3-year
For
contract?
3 year. Mhm.
Doesn't seem, I mean, looking at it from that perspective, it doesn't seem
Mhm.
ridiculous. That's about what inflation's gotten back to.
Things are up a little bit. I
I'm just
see the
thinking that
costs.
ought to, that, you know, just on principle, be some kind of open, you know, if anyone else wanna get in on this and just see what happens. Is there a reason not to?
I don't see any reason not to. He's been pretty good so far. He's done a pretty good job. A couple things.
I don't know where we go to try and find that service, though.
How you would advertise?
Right.
Well, I mean, you just
We would
put
it
a
out.
note in the paper saying, do you wanna mow the cemetery? It's a little more than that, but
I mean, if you put accepting bids, then we'd have to give somebody a bid, right?
Mhm. We can think about it, if you think of some, you know, the best way to get that word out to the, the-
basically, we had 3 or 4 months before there's a practical difference, right? Or does he need an answer right away?
oh, he doesn't need it, he wants it, you know,
You should understand
before the,
that. I mean,
probably first of the year or something, but,
I think that that's reasonable.
I mean, I don't wanna be a jerk, I don't wanna
We could-
mess him up.
But you can see what's.
No, actually, if you
If-
wanted to advertise, it should have been a few
Already.
months ago, before the contract was up. But
You wanna see what other people are charging or where you would come in.
No, quite apart from that, just the process of, we renew a contract, we publicize it for possible other bids.
And that makes sense.
My impression is that people are really busy, and they may, it's just like the experience we've had with the contractors for the building a new firehouse.
Mhm.
They're- there's no extra labor, and they just wanna keep going.
Well, he does the county cemetery too, so it's kinda hard to sneak over and see who's doing that. You know, say you got a business card. I mean, I've got no
I'm bringing it up,
objection.
just on principle.
I have no objection to throwing $50 into an ad in the newspaper. I just not sure that it's gonna generate much, but you never know.
Well,
I mean, I don't think there's too many lawn mowing companies reading the Yellow Springs News.
Or, probably, I bet they would be looking for work. I mean, if you've got a business, you're gonna want work.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to be a pretty good sized business to take on.
Yeah,
on
lawnmower
this
in the
model.
back of your pickup won't do it.
Right. What were you saying, Mark?
Oh, I was gonna say, it seems that we had a discussion early on that brought us an awareness of how hard it was to find someone to do this particular service. It wasn't like we had to beat them off with a stick.
Yeah, I've never been approached by anyone else who wanted to do the work.
Well, we got bids the first round, we had
Right.
2 or 3 bids or
So
something.
say again what year that might have been?
2013.
Well, I can tell you that the City of Xenia Water Treatment Plant bids out their mowing. So they must have a list of people or something,
I'm sure there's companies around.
if you want that. I don't know, there's a fine line between trying to figure out if you say to our current contractor, we want to solicit bids, then he's got to go out and look for other work in case he doesn't get the job. And if he gets something he likes better, you've lost it. And you say, this guy is doing a good job, and and it wasn't so easy to find somebody in the first place, then you need to be careful. That's what crosses my mind. I mean, if I were in the position of being the person doing the mowing,
I have no reason to think that we should change. I'm just, on principle, it seems like
Put it
it
out
should
there,
always be open.
put it out there, see what you get.
The other concern is that, what if he raises his bid? I mean, after looking around and saying to himself, really, it's gonna cost me X number of dollars. And, so my concern is that he would raise.
Again, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was 18,000 before we took over yearly. I think that's what it
The
was.
association was paying parties 18.
18,000, right,
Yeah.
so we're still under that, and we're getting on their service.
Yeah. Well, Don, you brought it up, I will leave it up to you if you want to pursue that and
I
advertise
will,
it.
let's put
Go
it
for it.
as an item of business. Let's not take action on his contract. Item of business at the next meeting.
Okay.
And I will have a proposed course of action.
All right, I like that. Anything further for the cemeterian? Or the road associate, not associate, road, what did I say, administrator?
Cemetery.
I'm the road administrator.
You're the road administrator.
Let's see, had our first snowfall, ice fall. Used a little bit of salt, which I'll be hauling some more in here probably, if not Wednesday, first of the week. More loads in, make sure we got some, trying to use up what we got, much as I can. And I'm gonna finish up my culvert job on Lamont, hopefully tomorrow, weather permitting. Supposed to be nicer than today. And then we're going to branches for Wednesday.
Wednesday, Thursday, no, not Thursday.
Not Thursday, or Friday.
Well, you're gonna have a busy day on Wednesday then.
Yeah, do the best I can.
Yeah. Hyde Road is full of stuff along the edges, and, yeah,
Well, I mean, I still have time to go out and trim them and knock some of that back.
No, I mean, it's just stuff on the
Oh,
ground.
yeah, I mean, we push stuff off everywhere.
Yeah,
Next thing you know later.
yeah. All right, thank you very much. We'll turn our spotlight to the fiscal officer.
Yay.
Yay.
Well, guess what? There's a resolution about permanent appropriations. And, this is resolution 2018-49, and whereas it is an ongoing process to accurately appropriate funds according to the needs of the township, now therefore the trustees authorize amendments to the following permanent appropriations in the gas tax fund. I increased repairs and maintenance by $1,000. And EMS billing, I increased their operating supplies by $5,000.
You notice our gas tax revenue is up.
Yeah, the revenue status is good.
Yeah, we're like 6,500 over on budget amount.
That's not so shabby.
Well,
And
the road
the
bridge is
general
6,500 less.
fund's pretty 100%.
Yeah. You're
Is
the
that
only
coming
one,
into us
you're the only one that's less.
from expenses?
No, less in revenue from the county.
The road bridge is the only one that's a titch under, it looks like. Everybody else is at 100% or more. Right?
Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted your, I didn't interrupt, that you were done, but.
I was finished, yeah. Yeah, we're celebrating, it's okay.
I would move, approval of resolution 2018-49.
Okay, there's a motion.
I'll second that.
A second, any further discussion? Hearing none, may we vote, please?
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Muecher?
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
I don't have anything else really to report, everything's fine.
It's always scary to say that, isn't
Thank you
it?
very much.
I mean, no,
Anything for the fiscal officer from the board? Not done? Hearing none, we'll move to belated zoning inspector.
Well, I can say that I didn't have a whole lot to report. If I'd been here at the first meeting of the month, and I have hardly anything more to report, but I'm anxious to follow up on the status of new appointees to the BZA.
Okay, well, you can do that.
Concept.
Would you like to add anything to that, Don?
There are, I'm aware of two, although I've only spoken with one,
Why don't you speak?
possible nominee,
Why don't you speak for the one that you?
well, Barbara Krabeck,
Yeah.
somebody I would nominate to be on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
She's, months ago, just approached me with general zoning concerns, and she's agreed to be considered specifically for Board of Zoning Appeals. She's someone who lives on Hyde Road, outside of the village, in the township, and has been civically engaged over the years.
Okay. We call that a formal motion?
Well, I think it's worth, I'm aware that you had another name.
Well, let's do them
Rather than
individually.
doing one at a time, why don't we?
Well, because we may like one and not like the other, so why don't we just do them individually? So-
Okay, I move that the appointment of Barbara Kraybeck to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second, any further discussion? Hearing none, may we vote on that motion?
Mr. Hollister,
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher,
Yes.
Mr. Crockett,
Yes.
is this so this is
So 5-year appointment?
it is a 5-year appointment, it's not fulfilling the unfulfilled.
Well, yes, this is the unfulfilled term that was vacated by Joe Staggs. His
Okay,
retirement.
so
And-
is
So
that
it's not
starting
5 years starting from now, it's
No.
starting.
from the beginning of this year?
I don't know, was Joe's term up at the end of last calendar year? Or
No.
did he just, I
He-
don't,
he
I'd have to
may be
look up, I don't have it
Yeah,
in my head.
right.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to put in minutes. if we-
Okay, but anyway, she is Joe's replacement, so however that fits into the
So
schedule.
somehow we need to
Somebody has to tell
formally record that so that next time this comes up in 4 years or whatever.
Well, we have it on our website.
Okay.
The terms are current on the website.
Okay, but.
We've got the information.
Will somebody give me the information
Sure,
when
we
they find
can
it?
take care of that.
Okay, great.
Just leave a little XX on the minutes or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, well, I'll leave it blank.
Placing Joe Stead. There
Yes,
is
I've
another
got that, but I
opening.
just need to know,
So as-
Anyway,
As we know, another member of the BZA, or a member of the BZA, recently passed away, Mr. Kimball. And I don't know what the term, how far he was into his term also, but we certainly can get that information. But I had a discussion with a township resident, and basically I told him that since he was interested in township government enough to buy the book by Dylan Thomas Lay,
The former news reporter.
yeah, the former news reporter danced at Trustees and went so far as to ask to have members of the board sign the book. I said that was the fatal error of showing
Now wait,
interest in
did you
township
show him
government.
what was really signed?
It's a fatal error of showing interest in township government, and as such, would be a perfect appointment to fulfill a BZA
and did he
vacancy.
say okay?
And he said, okay, so
And the name is?
I'm gonna
I know it is.
move to nominate Dave Newhart to be a BZA member to fill the remaining term of Chuck Kimball and into beyond, into the next.
If everybody here doesn't know, once you're appointed, you are there until you resign, or the board raises their eyebrows, but that hasn't
You
happened
get
in recent history.
I assume
Or
you
you
get
pass
reappointed
Yes, you do.
as your term.
So that will make 5 again?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
If we vote on this, and
Yes, but, right, of course, yeah.
we do need to
Go ahead.
keep our ears open for another appointment, because Kathy Bayless, who's the current chair of the board, is only available 6 months of the year for work, although, obviously we have so few meetings. But
We just can't postpone them until
Right.
she's here.
it would be nice to have somebody else, either as an alternate for when she's not here, or I know she's expressed that she's more than willing.
Well, she's willing to
step aside.
resign, but she's also a very competent,
Mhm.
hard-working member, so, and we didn't exactly have people in the wings waiting, so we haven't tried to replace her, but it became painfully obvious
Right.
when we lost 2 people that we were in trouble.
Yeah.
So, yes, if someone else comes up, to appoint an alternate would be appropriate.
Yeah. Okay, so may we vote on that motion, please?
wait.
Did we do a motion?
Motion
yet?
is to appoint David Newhart.
Yeah, so that was your motion, right?
Right.
Who seconded
I'll
it?
second
Okay. Yes, now we can vote.
Okay.
Mr. Crockett,
it. Yes.
Mr. Mutcher,
Yes.
Mr. Hollister?
Yes.
Okay, anything further for zoning? Richard?
No, there's a zoning commission meeting tomorrow night,
Uh-huh.
but there hasn't been one for some time, so
Mhm.
we'll catch up then.
All right, Good.
And there haven't been any action in terms of permits.
And has the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting been scheduled?
The time that works for the applicants and the two before tonight available members is December 13th. So I actually didn't have to advertise it today, I can advertise it next Monday and meet my deadline. So I will be able to talk to these two people and make sure that I've got enough people to have a meeting before I put anything in the newspaper.
Oh, and I printed 3 sets of zoning code from your disc, or your stick, which is in there, so you can take that back and incorporate that. You said you were ready to do that.
Okay.
So that's in there. Okay, thank you very much. Standing committee reports. I can go quickly over mine because both MVRPC and regional planning did not meet last month. The executive committee, regional planning met, but not the full board, neither of the MVRPCs. I noticed, Margaret, that you didn't get a chance to add the MVRPC TAC directors into that, so maybe.
Yeah, where's the TAC
It
go?
would be another standing committee report.
It's another it's in Miami Valley Regional Planning for the TAC,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it'll be a third, okay.
and we did not meet this month.
so there you go.
Okay,
Is that-
yeah, my apology, I just
Clean
not
sweep
taking a
of
chance, I
nothing.
just forgot,
Uh,
and didn't do that.
and Mills time, I went through it yesterday, sorry. Mark, anything for the,
Yeah, the Economic Sustainability Committee had its monthly meeting, and I did attend. We had a list of pluses and negatives for the community, and there was a discussion of those. Fairly long list.
Economic pluses and minuses?
Yeah, well, not just the economic, but how would you promote Yellow Springs as a community to a prospective employee? And so,
Employer or employee?
employers, possible. And one of the pluses was that we are a very urban community attitudinally, and so it was suggested that we advertise on both coasts. That cost-wise, we are competitive with either West Coast or East Coast. And I want to say that was, most of the meeting was devoted to that, to analyzing. And like I said, Emily was kind enough to list, Emily Sable, listed all of the concerns that were generated during the conversation and responded to them. So, okay.
The concerns about the senior housing?
That was another meeting, and
So what concerns do you mean?
concerns about the economic competitiveness of Yellow Springs in terms of the surrounding community and the East and West Coast. But the meeting on Monday was with the, last Monday, was with the Yellow Springs Board of Zoning Appeals, and I was impressed by their formality. I meant to ask you, is our zoning board as formal?
Well, I haven't been to a village Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for some time, so I can't compare them. We have all, whether village or township or whatever, been instructed that there are certain formalities that you need to go through, the swearing in, for example. And
Of witnesses?
well, not anyone that speaks, we don't refer to people as witnesses.
Right.
Yeah, even though it's a quasi-judicial process, it's always said. But that, it isn't just like the six of us sitting around the table talking about it.
Right.
There's people presenting their information to the board, and there's the board asking questions if they have it, and then deliberating,
Well,
going through that process.
the proposed senior housing building, there were several people opposed to it. The majority was in favor of it. The overall height would be like 55 feet, which would make it the tallest structure in town.
No,
But, no,
not the tallest structure in town.
no.
There are buildings on Antioch campus, quite a
Yeah,
few that are
right.
taller than that.
Well, in fact, that was brought up, the observation, Richard Lapides brought this up, that there was a time when you built monumental structures and were proud of them instead of concerned about them in a negative way. He mentioned several buildings on campus. I felt that overall it was really, I learned a lot about the proposed building that I didn't know before, and as a consequence, I have not written my letter yet. But I will.
This was a letter of support.
Yeah. Letter to the editor. But I want to show it to you both before. You have a question?
No, I decided that it's not germane to the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Any Clifton Board business?
I don't know of any
Well-
more word about when we might meet.
Well, yeah, there was, it's pretty much last week, the meeting, when I tried to get everybody together, the board president was in the throes of harvest.
Right.
And, basically the same week that Mr. Kimball passed away, Brian let me know that he's finished harvesting. And I said, well, our board member lost her husband recently, so she probably just needs a little bit of time. This is Thanksgiving before. So maybe in December, we probably should try and throw one in there before the end of the year, I would think. So, it's
I'll be
still
around.
in the works, and then hopefully, and so, like I said,
I'll be
next
here
week, I'm
till
gonna try.
December 20th.
I'm gonna try and, throw some feelers out there so we can get something together for an hour. Okay?
New business, old business. I got a short list of things I'm just gonna run down. Some is new, some is old. Figure it out as we go along. The postcards, I believe, are out. The DMS Inc. mailing, they were supposed to go out the end of last week. I haven't heard officially, but perhaps they are. We talked about in our last special meeting that our website has been upgraded from the old. I don't know if you've had a chance to look through it. I spent a fair amount of time on it, trying to, make sure it's something that I'm comfortable navigating if I've got something to put on there. And it virtually is the same information as our other one, which is good, because that's what I thought was good information to be on there. We can add things as we go along or reduce them as we find necessary. I would advocate to replace the old one with the new one, as soon as possible. I mean, it's just a matter of flipping the switch. Although, I think we should at least explore, and I put out feelers, explore the possibility of having some design work done to have a professional feel to it, because right now you click on MiamiTownship.net, and with the new site, it will just come up with text about the township, and then, pages to click on for a cemetery or for the mill or the different pages. There's no graphics, there's no photographs, there's no music, there's no, there's no transitions.
What's the name of the software that it's based on?
Word page, WordPress.
WordPress sounds familiar.
I think that would be nice to have something more appealing than just text, because people might be looking around for a place to relocate or
So
something.
when I asked about photos, you said that it would be easy to put them in, but we don't have them, or we haven't put them in.
So anyway, is there an agreement to change over these from the old to the new?
I liked it. The one thing the one category that I think would be good to have, well, actually two categories. And I'd like a slot for a fire rescue annual report.
Well, that's actually,
And maybe it would fit in there, but
I'm not sure it's in the old one. I can't access the old one because of the difference
okay,
in
it
the
could be it could be a
coding.
link to the other website.
Mhm.
But I think we should have, so, for instance, there's a levy coming up next year,
Yeah.
so people can see how many,
Well, the link that's on the original one and the one that's there is the one that goes right to mftr.org.
so
It's not,
we should pay some attention to what's on MFT.
Or just that it's easy to navigate, that people are getting where they want.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure the yearly report is on that one.
I would ask that the,
but I want to
oh,
finish
okay,
mine.
I'm sorry, Don.
The other is, I think we should have a finance page somehow, and I don't exactly know what I mean. But,
Okay. Well,
maybe that could be added.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I mean, without, stopping what we've already got.
Sure, well, rough up what you're thinking as an idea.
Well, I haven't talked to Margaret, I should talk to Margaret about it.
Yeah, and we can move along with that, certainly in the future, if it's,
I just don't wanna approve something that
well, this is
makes
not,
it not possible to add.
no, anything is possible,
Yeah, I like what we saw,
Almost.
what's already there.
so it's something to start work.
Then just, while this is all in process, it would be nice to have the comprehensive land use plan under the zoning section as well as the code.
It could be put on easily enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Did we move in second? I moved. if we do.
Oh, are we gonna move in second?
Yes, we
I
are.
just put yes with an exclamation point.
Yes, sir.
I'll second that motion to endorse the new website.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion regarding that? Hearing none, may we vote please?
Mr. Crockett?
Yes.
Mr. Mutcher?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Did we approve, sign, return the Leisure Lawn contract from last week?
I would agree. It was laying that sack of papers, wasn't it?
So I'll have to dig it out somewhere.
Yeah,
Do that,
well,
okay.
it's in the pile. And the top, it's in the top of the pile.
Now, wait, how is leisure lawn separate from what we just talked about with the cemetery?
They are the dandelion people.
It's just, I didn't
Oh,
put it
I
in.
remember.
I didn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Put it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I spoke again this afternoon with Steve Ross from Bath Township, and we're hopefully going to get together either this end of next week, either formally, we haven't worked this out yet, either formally as a special meeting between Bath Township and Miami Township, or perhaps a working session with Colin and Denny, and knock out some of these, issues that we had about jurisdiction and where they would be responsible for, and then the cost of providing the service
This is for extending fire service.
to Bath Township.
Oh,
So-
sorry, what's his last name?
Ross, R-O-S-S.
Okay, thank you.
What's the furthest west road? Does it include Trayvine Road?
No.
It was
That
West Eden
Township
Road,
would.
wasn't it?
That does.
That township would include.
No,
Fairlight.
yeah, but
Oh,
No, but
we're
for the-
going to,
Our
we
service
wouldn't
area.
go that far.
Yeah, we wouldn't go that far.
I think it was West
It
Eden.
was down to Mud Run, was that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Somewhere,
And then-
somewhere over around Mud Run,
and
I
then,
thought.
like 235 or this corner of it. We had roughed those out the last time we talked about it.
That would-
That's-
that would cover part of Trayvine, right? Between,
I think there was a
between
little,
Fairfield Yellow and 235.
yeah, I think there was a little bit of it. Anyway, we'll get that working out. BZA got done. I'm going to a commissioners meeting. I was invited as a special to receive our check for the permissive motor vehicle distribution.
Yes.
No,
What?
I'm sorry, no, it's the grant money from the commissioners, our portion of the $500,000 that they are funding county subdivisions with.
$989,
No, our portion of the $500,000. Our portion is gonna be.
which is not.
No, it's, he told us, everybody, 6,800, something like that.
I was just being facetious.
And,
Not the
and,
size.
and I love the information that we got. We will be presented with novelty checks at this.
We still have one on the wall in here.
And we'll have an opportunity for a photo op, and to make a statement to the commissioners from the political subdivision receiving the check. Holy
When is
Lord.
this?
December 4th.
'Cause
I'd love to
I
make
got a
the
message,
statement.
a phone call on my home phone from somebody wanting to know if we were gonna show up at a commissioners meeting.
Yeah.
What did you do? Is that ringing a bell? Of something besides this?
Does our statement have to relate to
I have to listen
It
to
does
anything
this.
in
have- It
particular?
does have to relate to the grant.
Oh.
You guys don't know what else, you don't know of another meeting that the commissioners are calling, and wanting to know if we're showing up?
Not right off.
Alright, I'll have to listen to that message again.
I also had a meeting last week with the mayor of Clifton and the president of the Yellow Springs Village Council, and David, I can't think of David's last name, the consultant, about the Yellow Springs Clifton Connector bike path. Oh, and Nick Budis from the Glen, and we kind of chatted about different possibilities and map locations and directions and this, that, and the other thing, and long story short, we're going to hope to get a hike through the Glen, if possible.
Along a possible route.
So,
How
that's
do
our
you
next.
mean a hike?
Walk.
We're gonna walk it.
To examine
Yeah,
the
potential.
Get a feel for what it's gonna be like.
The lay of the land. We did that 6 months ago for this section from Clifton back to the Oregon Trail at John Bryan through the mountain bike path and the Oregon Trail path, and that was an interesting walk. Just this morning, I also met with 2 members of the village council on a potential organization of a community investment corporation, a designated community investment corporation. I think this is something, Mark, you're probably familiar with because it's been gone through the economic sustainability group a few times, I know. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, Don.
I'd like to look at the document. Somebody's been whispering to me about it.
Tell them they don't have to whisper, they can talk right out. That's the document that came, I don't know,
Is,
a month or so ago.
could I make a copy of this and take it with me?
Certainly, you can take that with you if you like.
Take this one?
Sure.
Okay.
Chris, how is this body different from the one that existed when we were trying to get either, you know, well, let's just say, that it resulted in the property that is now the Antioch Midwest and all being developed cooperatively between, you know, the township was happening, and there's that check on the wall that was part of that deal.
Well,
And it was some kind of an improvement corporation, wasn't it?
that was, yeah, that was the Community Improvement Corporation, but
I don't know, I can't remember that
Yeah.
name either, but I just wondered what this is proposed to do with that one.
well, that one was site-specific to the Commerce
Okay,
Park.
that was site specific.
Yeah,
Well, there were actually 3 pieces of property, I think, that were included
Yeah.
in it, and it ended up being a commerce park.
in theory, they were acting in a quasi CIC fashion for the whole village, but there really wasn't any other areas that were open.
So this is more generic,
This one?
Yeah.
Would be much more wide-ranging, including Miami Township and the municipal boundary areas
Mhm.
around. May or may not be Clifton.
Oh, okay,
I
it'd be a much
advocated
broader
the
area.
Clifton area. One part of this which I didn't understand is they're really looking for this group to also administer the village revolving loan
Mhm.
fund, which doesn't exist
Yeah,
at
I
the
know.
moment, but they want
But
to get.
didn't they sell, or they got some money back from,
Yeah, but they didn't put it in
they
there.
didn't put it in the loan fund, oh, okay.
Apparently there's 30,000 available for the economic development, or economic 35 for the revolving loan fund. And so this CIC would be potentially made up of a minimum of 40% elected officials, 60% others. That includes village council, Miami Township, school board, may or may not be Clifton
Mhm.
council representative from there. Member from Antioch College, member from Community Not Solutions,
Chamber of Commerce?
the Chamber of Commerce. I can't pull the name up.
Anyway, that's the
Civic
60%.
Foundation.
Yeah, without, okay.
Roughly an 11 member group. And this would be all open public meetings. There would have to be some aspect of an executive session because CICs, you know.
Are dealing with real estate.
With real estate transactions, and I don't see how you could have an open, you know, completely open thing if you're negotiating to buy and or sell some asset that.
I haven't thought about
Yeah.
that. You know, I've often wondered, you stop and think, well, why does it have to be not public? Because obviously, you know, there's lots of real estate that trades hand that we all know about the process.
My understanding is that the sunshine laws don't apply to designated CIC.
Geez, interesting.
Sort of like John Kasich's Jobs Ohio. Just a whole other subject.
So that's on the horizon. They're going to try and put together an initial meeting of interested parties, mid-December, which may or may not be all that workable, but it's a thought, anyway, so. We'll report on that in the future, I'm sure. That's all I had for new business, old business.
I had a question which goes back to correspondence, which I was not here for. One of our letters.
Which we didn't go over, so that's all right.
One of our letters referred to an appraisal visit.
Uh-huh.
What was that?
Otarma, our insurance company, is just starting, this is a new feature of insurance. They will at our request, they're not gonna force us to do it, but they will at our request come out and do a professional property appraisal of all of our property valued more than 55,000.
It's already scheduled.
Yeah, it's
And did you see
December
the,
13th. That's not,
did you
we
see
talked about this
yeah, last meeting,
I
did you
thought.
see the list of all the documents they were hoping we would get our hands on for the,
No,
I'll show you that.
okay, you show me that.
Yeah.
It might be, I mean, because that would be of current interest.
Oh, yeah, that's specifically, I called them and followed up on it
Yeah,
and asked
because he
them.
found the piece of paper on my desk, remember that?
Is their appraisal just as good as if you went out and hired
I
an
believe
appraiser?
so.
So
Yeah,
you'll
that's my
know what
understanding.
this building is
Right.
worth?
Yes.
Sort of.
Just do that.
Well,
Well, I mean,
apparently we've
what
got
an
this on,
appraiser says the building is worth.
we've got this on Otarma's books for $800 and some thousand,
Mm-hmm.
so.
You know, obviously, they're providing that service to you to make sure that their insurance
Sure.
is appropriate.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'd
yeah.
be, if that's really the case, I'd be interested in why the difference between 350 and 800. Just asking.
Uh, The 350
Time's up.
is the Chris Mutual appraisal. That's the reason for the difference. So we'll see what Otarma's professional appraisals are. Now, if we could get 850 for this building, that would be great.
Yeah, that'll solve some problems.
That'd be
Well, this is also a tough building to appraise because there aren't any similar buildings.
Yeah, comps are gonna be hard to get. All right, any other business before the board? It's quiet. Hearing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and done. Done and done.
Can you give me Barbara's phone number in case it's not something I can look up?